Greetings, Internet surfer. Stay a while and listen. Hello, everybody. This is AJ back with the TMG channel, and today we're returning to the Fae. And this is kind of spurred on by a comment that somebody else made. It was King Stewie. Hi, King Stewie. Made a comment. A dryad bounded to a rotted tree by an elven necromancer who worships that ghoul god that I talked about, causing the rot to spread through the forest. Side effect, it causes anything that died or dies in the spread of the rot to come back as an undead, or maybe even an elf necromancer is bound to that rotted tree. Wow, that's interesting stuff. And it kind of ties in with this creature a little bit. This is the Shambling Mound, and I'm sorry it took me so long to get around to doing the Shambling Mound as well. The Shambling Mound is created when lightning strikes the earth, interacts with Fey energies, and creates an abomination of nature. And there's a reason why I've got a picture here of a former elven city which has fallen into decay and been overtaken by nature. And also this other ruin here, which is a swampy sort of cave mouth city that has fallen into disrepair and been overtaken by nature as well. Of course, shambling mounds have a tendency to consume everything, so really a shambling mound would leave a bit of a barren wasteland behind, killing all plants and animals in its wake as it spreads inexorably over the land. And of course, shambling mounds are very hard to get rid of, and I'll talk about why that is. So let's start off with their stats. They're a large plant creature. They're amorphous in shape, really, although they have limbs and things, and they're quite often depicted as having a head-like orifice, which is where they consume things into their core. But really, they're just a mass of plant tissue that has no real form per se. It's built around a core, a woody core of a root mass. And they've got an armor class of 15, which is their natural woody armor. They've got 136 hit points. They've got a speed of 20 feet and a swim speed of 20 feet, so they can travel just as well underwater. They have a stealth +2, and what they usually do is they hide out and remain fairly immobile. And it's not until you're right on top of these things that they suddenly animate and you realize you're in deep trouble. They've got resistance to cold and fire, which is quite unusual for a plant creature being resistant to fire, but it's because of their dense mass and the fact that they're very dewy and sappy, and they're magical in nature. They were created by lightning, and they've got immunity to all lightning or electricity attacks. In fact, lightning is absorbed by the shambling mound, and it takes no damage, instead regains a number of hit points equal to the lightning damage dealt. So hitting it with lightning, it does the opposite of damage to these things. It regenerates them and empowers them. So they are immune to being blinded, deafened, or exhausted because they're essentially a magical being with no normal physiology. They have no eyes and ears. They have blindside out to 60 feet, but they can't see anything beyond that because they're picking up on vibrations and pheromones and things. And they've got a passive perception of 10, but again, I would say that's only within 60 feet. However, they're quite large and can spread out over quite a large area. So if they're waiting in an ambush with somebody, they could be spread out over that 60-foot radius could extend out to maybe 120 or maybe even 100 feet, depending on the size of the shambling mound and how spread out it's sprawled itself. They have a multi-attack, which consists of 2 slam attacks, and their objective is to hit a medium or smaller object with both of those slam attacks. And if the target is grappled, DC for the escape is 14, and the shambling mound uses its engulf on it. It can suck that creature inside itself, and that target is then blinded, restrained, and unable to breathe, and it must succeed on a DC 14 Constitution saving throw at the start of each of the mound's turns, or takes 13 bludgeoning damage. And of course it can't breathe, and as the mound is moving around and attacking other people, that target is moving around inside it as well. The engulf target, they can only have one engulfed at a time, so it's basically large enough to engulf one person. However, if the mound is really, really huge, If you decide to make a gargantuan mound or something like that, it could probably absorb more people. Or you could also give them more limbs for more slam attacks to make a more challenging group encounter. This is a creature which is designed to generally be encountered by itself. However, you can make more of them. There's no reason why the mound wouldn't split off like a cancer and metastasize and spread throughout the jungle of it, or swamp of its home, and create a blight which is moving around like a circle of rot, which is spreading outward inexorably. So yeah, they're a challenge rating 5 in and of themselves, just as this as they're listed here. But I could say that it would only go up from there. So that central root mass of the Shambling Mound must be destroyed if you want to kill the Shambling Mound. So you need to basically burn them completely, or dissolve them with acid, or chop right into the heart of them and kill the root at the inside of it. What they essentially do is they have that central root mass, and then they stuff organic tissue around it to create a core of compost. So all organic or plant matter that that they encounter, they're tearing it up and they're feeding it into the center, where the root mass is digesting it and driving that unnatural growth. So that it allows the thing to have a massively accelerated metabolism for a plant. But they are just a plant, and they have the same limitations and abilities of plants. So they are very strong. They've got a strength of 18. They're not very fast. They can only move at 20 feet per round, and they've got a dexterity of 8. So they're sort of lumbering but very powerful. They've got a constitution of 16, and they have a basic intelligence of 5, a wisdom of 10, and a charisma of 5. So they have a basic animal intelligence, and they're driven on through that Fey energy. And yeah, they're a plant that just consumes everything. A shambling horror. They're a monster, an aberration of the Fey world. And they're a natural enemy of elves, of course, who try to protect the forest. So an elf generally would have to be some sort of crazy necromancer, like King Stewie says, to create and direct a shambling mound, because they're a dangerous evil. However, you could possibly keep a little bit of root mass in a jar or some sort of other protected thing, and keep it sustained by just feeding it little bits and pieces, like a little shop of horrors critter, and just throw it like a bomb into the middle of a forest or a city or something, and it would just spread and start to cause havoc, growing more and more devastating as it grows in size, and possibly splits into 2 or more, and yeah, it becomes a plague, a blight upon the land. So their instinct drives the Shambling Mound from its central root stem, and they typically will eat and eat and eat, and then they'll remain dormant for a while to absorb the nutrients, and then they burst out and go on another shambling killing spree. So yeah, as I said, you have to kill this thing. You have to burn it, destroy it, and get into the core and kill that root. Now, it's quite possible that somebody wouldn't know that they have to kill the root of this thing, and they just chop it until it stops twitching, and then it collapses on itself and appears to decay, and looks very dead from the outside. But in actual fact, it's just turned its outer body. It's sacrificed its its limbs and turned it into its entire body into compost, which is feeding that central root, and then it just sprouts out from there again and immediately goes on another killing rampage. So yeah, that's Shambling Mounds for you. They're a pretty simple beastie. I would say if you want to create variants of that, look at any other plant creature. Certainly poison, spores. There's no reason why you can restrict it to just plants. It could be a fungal mass as well, some sort of mutant myconid monster. Myconids, of course, they feed upon rot. So a shambling mound is something that they may employ as a siege weapon, a weapon of terror and mass destruction, that they would seed into a new cavern or something like that, where the shambling mound goes through and destroys everything and turns everything into a goopy compost mass that it leaves behind, ejecting spent material like dirt, and the myconids would come in and hungrily, greedily snap it up. And they would also be great for excavating and things like that, because the shambling mound would want to get out of any environment and go hunting for more food to drive that, and that monstrous metabolism they have. Of course, they would turn on any organic master to consume them as well. They have no loyalty to anyone. And of course, it's very hard to control something if it's not really scared of cold or fire or lightning. What are you going to do? You're going to have to throw, it's also very resistant to getting chopped up into little pieces as well. So I guess acid is the only thing that would really cause them pause. And you could keep them corralled by a pool of acid around them, which would stop them going across it, I guess. But they're a plant. They can grow great big tendrils and latch onto things, and rappel up and down surfaces. So yeah, it'd be very difficult to keep them contained. That's not really what shambling mounds are about. But certainly give them ranged attacks in the form of poisoned barbs that spring out like porcupine quills, like a blowgun. And they may also generate infectious spores, fungal spores, and things like that as well. Yeah, the worst case of athlete's foot you've ever seen, that sort of thing. Certainly. So yeah, and they may even be able to spread through just little bits of their cells getting into waterways and things like that. Just a route that travels a long distance by floating down a river or in through the sewers of a city. So you could have this thing occupying a large underground space, and then all of a sudden it just bursts out, and you've got this massive thing which is engulfing buildings and plucking people off the street, and becomes a massive problem for the town guard, who have to call in everyone with a sword to hack this thing to pieces. And of course, it'll keep coming back and back again if they haven't killed that root mass. So yeah, shambling mounds are a great creature, really are, and one that you can add a lot of variety to and just throw into your game for absolute mayhem. And they could be a good reason why a civilization has abandoned an area to let it return to nature.